So Benson, he writes about how corporations influence and capitalize upon what is deemed tolerable in American life. And a few months ago, I wrote a paper where I wrote about trans bodies and black bodies and the bodies of those belonging to marginalized groups. And I also used Benson's text, and I wrote about Colin Kaepernick's protest and Jordan Peele's Get Out. Now, Jordan Peele's Get Out deals with abduction and harm done to the black body, as well as assimilation. So when we look at what is deemed tolerable in American life, one of the reasons why Peele's film Get Out works so well is that, or has a cultural resonance, is due to the fact that it is so absurd that it could be true due to the reality, the precarity of black life. And in this particular instance, I'm specifically thinking about, police killings and missing black bodies. The New York Times, for instance, they report that 1.5 million black men are missing from American society, and they link this to the prison industrial complex. That number for black women is 64,000. So, and this is not given much coverage, and that's also another point in Get Out, how these bodies just go missing and nobody really seems to bother. So Peele, he has many similar themes that are also covered in Benson's text. And one of an interesting aspect is that of scientific racism, this idea, this myth that black people have a higher tolerance for pain, which is linked to the dehumanization of black bodies, or even the fact where you see black players placed on the field. Studies have showed that oftentimes African Americans receive inadequate medical treatment or sufficient medicine due to this idea that they have a higher tolerance for pain. If we look at the father of modern gynecology, J. Marion Sims, he used a lot of African slaves, children, especially women and girls, when he tried to gain medical strides within modern gynecology. Patients died, uteruses were destroyed, people were handicapped. Even for his time, his methods were deemed controversial and unorthodox, by his peers. He would use actual work tools, not just medical appliances, to stretch bones and so forth, and to perform his experiments. So if you look at the father of modern gynecology, Sims, Sims' practice, much like the NFL, are similar in the sense that we're dealing with big business, and because he was called upon to repair slaves for owners. And so we see how this racialized capitalism is tied in with the dehumanization of the black body. Benson, he writes about another player by the name of Anquan Bolden, who broke his face, underwent surgery, and less than 2 weeks later he was back on the field. And this ties in with what Ta-Nehisi Coates writes about when he says that, in America it's traditional to destroy the black body. And we see how throughout time the black body has been used to sustain the U.S. economy, from slavery all the way up to the prison industrial complex, and there are many other examples in between. So when we look at Sims, what we're dealing with is a psychology of implicit racial bias, a superhumanization bias. And to quote Benson, I quote, this bias affects team officials and trainers. Relative to injured white players, injured black players are deemed more likely to play in a subsequent game. So in Get Out, you have the black lead character, and he's dating this young white woman. And in one scene, that's another link I'll offer you guys, her brother Jeremy tells Chris, your body with my mind, you'd be an excellent, efficient, and skilled fighter. He'd be a beast. And this idea, this logic, this theory, it plays into the myth of the black buck. Black intellectual inferiority and superhuman strength, King Kong. But still, this strength, this body by Jeremy's logic, still needs to be supervised and administered by white intellect. And so in the NFL, we see how the majority of execs, decision makers, coaches, owners are white and male. And of course, the majority of players are predominantly black.